You're listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast, where you'll learn about every Jewish topic imaginable in about 10 minutes. Before we get into today's discussion, let me give you the usual disclaimer. My Hebrew pronunciation isn't always perfect, and that's because I'm not really speaking. I'm an artificial intelligence voice. Sometimes when I try to say Hebrew, it comes out sounding like autocorrect went on vacation. So if Cholov Yisrael sounds like Hollow of Israel, just roll with it. Today's topic is Cholov Yisrael, a subject that seems like it's about milk, but actually opens up a whole world of Jewish law, history, and identity. We're going to talk about why this type of supervised milk matters, the debates among rabbis over whether it's absolutely required, and how different Orthodox communities treat it. Along the way, we'll sprinkle in modern comparisons, because honestly, dairy law debates can sound like the most intense episode of a cooking competition show, and who doesn't want a kosher top chef vibe? So what is Cholov Yisrael? The phrase literally means milk of Israel, but the concept goes back to the Talmud in Tractat Avodah Zarah. There, the sages worried that if Jews weren't present during the milking, farmers might slip in milk from non-kosher animals like camels, horses, or pigs. To prevent that, Jewish law required supervision. This became known as Cholov Yisrael. Fast forward to modern times, and you've got the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, which doesn't exactly operate with halacha in mind, but still makes sure your gallon of milk doesn't secretly contain zebra milk. Because of this, some rabbis in the 20th century argued that government oversight served the same function as Jewish supervision. That's where Cholov Stam, or ordinary milk, comes in. It's milk that's not supervised by Jews, but is still considered reliable. The whole debate centers on whether that's good enough according to halacha, or whether the original requirement of Jewish eyes on the process never expired. One of the most influential lenient opinions came from Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, a leading American halachic authority in the mid-20th century. In his collection of Responsa, Igros Moshe, Rabbi Feinstein ruled that regular American milk could be permitted because of the strict regulations in place. His logic was straightforward. Since the government enforces labeling and fraud laws, farmers wouldn't risk mixing in milk from non-kosher animals. This made ordinary milk halachically acceptable in his view, although he acknowledged that people who were strict and kept only Cholov Yisrael had solid backing. Rabbi Feinstein's leniency became hugely influential in modern Orthodox communities, especially in the United States, where access to Cholov Yisrael was limited and sometimes prohibitively expensive. His ruling gave reassurance to observant families who wanted to drink milk, eat ice cream, and enjoy cheesecake without having to import a rabbi to supervise every dairy farm. This perspective became the backbone of why many modern Orthodox Jews comfortably rely on Cholov Stam today. On the stricter side, many Hasidic groups, as well as leading Lithuanian yeshiva authorities, rejected the leniency. For example, Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner, the famed Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Rabbi Chaim Berlin, emphasized that the original rabbinic decree requiring supervision was still binding regardless of modern government laws. Similarly, the Chazon Ish in Israel leaned towards stringency, viewing government oversight as insufficient. Hasidic groups like Satmar, Belz, and Lubavitch, Chabad, strongly promote exclusive use of Cholov Yisrael products, seeing it as an expression of religious fidelity and community identity. Chabad in particular turned this into a major point of practice, with Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson encouraging followers to avoid Cholov Stam entirely. For these communities, the issue wasn't just technical law, but spiritual sensitivity. Choosing Cholov Yisrael was viewed as choosing a higher level of holiness. As a result, Hasidic supermarkets, bakeries, and restaurants overwhelmingly stick to Cholov Yisrael, creating a parallel food culture that sometimes differs from more lenient modern Orthodox establishments. In between the poles, you find nuanced positions. Some rabbis permit Cholov Stam, but encourage using Cholov Yisrael when it's reasonably available. Think of it as the, if you can get it without too much trouble, why not go for the higher standard approach? For instance, Rabbi Joseph B. Soloveitchik, often called the Rav, didn't personally rely on Cholov Stam, even though he didn't prohibit others from doing so. This personal stringency but not public prohibition models shaped much of the centrist Orthodox attitude.
From unsolved mysteries to unexplained phenomena, from comedy gold to relationship fails, Amazon Music's got the most ad-free top podcasts, included with Prime. Because the only thing that should interrupt your listening is, well, nothing. Download the Amazon Music app today.
Meanwhile, in Israel, the chief rabbinate has long certified Cholov Yisrael products exclusively, so the average Israeli Jew might be puzzled why Americans even debate it. Over there, supervision is the norm, not the exception. This shows how geography shapes practice. What feels like a major halachic controversy in New York or Los Angeles is barely noticed in Jerusalem or Bnei Brak. Essentially, different communities calibrate their practice based on availability, rabbinic leadership, and cultural priorities. Practically, the divide is clear across Orthodox groups. Modern Orthodox Jews, especially in America, often follow Rabbi Feinstein's leniency and consume Cholov stam without hesitation. You'll find them at Cold Stone Creamery ordering a birthday cake remix without checking if the ice cream is Cholov Yisrael. On the other hand, Hasidic and Haredi, ultra-Orthodox, communities almost universally require Cholov Yisrael. In fact, many yeshivas, kollels, and schools in those circles only serve Cholov Yisrael products. Among Sephardic Jews, practices vary. Some follow leniencies, especially when Cholov Yisrael is hard to obtain, while others align with stricter rulings like those of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, who encouraged Cholov Yisrael but permitted Cholov stam when no alternative existed. So the picture is a mosaic. If you walk into a kosher pizza shop in Monsey or Borough Park, odds are the mozzarella is Cholov Yisrael. Walk into a modern Orthodox college campus Hillel, and you might see regular supermarket cheese on the bagels. Both communities are kosher, but their dairy choices tell a story. The debate also highlights the tension between halachic minimums and communal identity. For lenient communities, following Rabbi Feinstein's ruling shows how halacha adapts to modern realities. If government oversight achieves the same protective goal as supervision, then ordinary milk suffices. For stricter groups, however, the decree about Jewish supervision was never just practical. It was a fence around Torah observance, and fences don't fall just because governments create new rules. Plus, there's the factor of identity. Choosing Cholov Yisrael says, we belong to this community. It's similar to how some people won't just buy fair trade coffee for taste, but because it signals values. In Hasidic life, consuming Cholov Yisrael marks boundaries, just as much as wearing black hats or speaking Yiddish. That's why the issue is more than dairy, it's a cultural symbol. Even the difference in terminology, Cholov Yisrael versus Cholov stam, reflects not just halachic categories, but also communal belonging. Milk, of all things, becomes a badge of who you are and which Jewish world you live in. There are also edge cases, like powdered milk. Some rabbis argued that since powdered milk can't easily be adulterated with non-kosher substitutes, it sidesteps the problem entirely. Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank in Jerusalem supported this leniency, while others dismissed it as splitting hairs. Then there's the case of butter. Historically, many rabbis considered unsupervised butter permissible because non-kosher animal milk doesn't churn into butter well. But when modern production methods changed, stricter authorities reinstated the need for supervision. Today, kosher certification agencies wrestle with these technical issues, balancing rabbinic rulings with food science. And let's not even start on almond milk lattes. Since plant-based milks aren't dairy, they avoid the whole Cholov debate, which is why kosher coffee shops sometimes stock up on soy and oat milk. Ironically, the non-dairy craze has made life easier for observant Jews who prefer to keep meat and dairy strictly separate. The rise of vegan dairy alternatives may one day make the Cholov Yisrael issue less central, but for now, the conversation stays alive. For kids raised in Cholov Yisrael homes, this debate can feel like a sudden culture shock when they hit college. Imagine growing up where every cookie, chocolate bar, and ice cream tub was certified Cholov Yisrael. Then you walk into a campus dining hall and see Hershey's ice cream sundaes everywhere, but have to stop and wonder, can I even eat that? Meanwhile, your modern Orthodox roommate happily digs in, citing Rabbi Feinstein. These differences don't just shape eating habits. They shape Jewish identity peer groups, and even where people choose to shop. In areas with large Hasidic populations, supermarkets proudly advertise Cholov Yisrael lines of yogurt and cheese. In smaller communities, Jewish consumers often have to choose between importing these products or accepting Cholov stam. This creates a lived experience where milk isn't just milk. It's a marker of how you interpret halacha, whose rabbinic opinion you trust, and what level of religious stringency you embrace. And yes, it can spark heated Shabbat table debates over cheesecake. So, what does all this boil down to? Cholov Yisrael is more than just dairy law. It's a case study in how Judaism balances ancient rabbinic decrees with modern circumstances. On the lenient side, you have Rabbi Moshe Feinstein and those who accept government regulation as sufficient. On the strict side, you have Hasidic groups, Chabad, and many yeshivish authorities who see Cholov Yisrael as non-negotiable. Modern Orthodox Jews often embrace leniency, while Haredi and Hasidic communities uphold stringency, and Sephardim stand somewhere in the middle depending on local circumstances and rabbinic leadership. Ultimately, the choice reflects both halachic interpretation and community identity. If you choose Cholov stam, you're relying on trust in the system. If you insist on Cholov Yisrael, you're affirming an extra layer of holiness and tradition. Both approaches are authentically Jewish, and both have deep rabbinic support. So the next time you sip your latte or bite into cheesecake, remember there's more history, law, and identity in that dairy product than meets the eye. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, share it with a friend or leave a review.